investments have risk. I'm not a financial advisor. Nothing in this video should be taken as financial advice. As you know, I am partnered with the XX Network. They are a sponsor of the show. I have a bias towards the XX Network. When we long for life without difficulty, remind us that oak grows strong under contrary winds, and diamonds are made under pressure.
These are all supposed to be some really smart people. And I think it was chapter 2, maybe, that was called Dumb Mistakes by Smart People Can Make You Stupid Rich. Chapter 4, at the end of it, I say that these are some very, very smart PhD economists. If they don't understand and can't comprehend the wealth transfer that they are creating in it, this is theft from one group of people and a gift to another group of people that they create when they conjure currency into existence like this, and it's attached to future taxation. If they can't understand that, then they're incompetent and they don't belong in their jobs. If they do understand it, then they're immoral and they belong in jail. They are promoting and supporting and participating in theft, and I mean it's fraud and it's theft. And then I follow it up with a quote from the Federal Reserve that basically says that when new currency is created, and it's from the 1970s, I think they said this, but the creation of currency imparts purchasing power to the first users and spenders, and it's the holders of currency that are paying for it.
The fiat system, which allows banks and governments to create money through borrowing, puts powerful institutions at an advantage, while putting individual citizens at a disadvantage. As a result of this system, the value of people's labor and time is eroded. Money that is created trickles down to the average Joe, but by the time it does, the price of goods and services are inflated.
Listen, in 2011, the last time we went through a Republican House, Democratic president who weren't seeing eye to eye, we got within a day of default. And as a result of that just complete political dysfunction, S&P downgraded the credit rating of the United States from AAA to AA+. Moody's did not join then. If Moody's were to join this year and take the rating down, it would create havoc in the...
We've maxed out our credit cards, and now politicians need to raise the debt limit. If they stall, it can cause havoc in the bond market. U.S. bondholders will sell their bonds cheaper into the open market, driving the price down and the rates higher. Higher rates makes loans unaffordable, and this stops borrowing. Many companies are not profitable, and they rely on loans to stay afloat. There's a house of leverage built off of U.S. bonds. They're considered the best form of collateral. If a bank wants leverage, they post high-quality liquid assets or U.S. bonds as collateral to get leverage. When the bond sells off, the underlying collateral is worth less, and the bank may get a margin call. This could set off a chain reaction like we saw in March 2020.
Yeah, right now I think it's not in the market. I think what's in the market is clearly, the Fed's interest rate policy. But, if we don't get it together, if the Republican Congress and the president can't figure out a way to raise the debt ceiling, and that may involve a budget deal or it may involve a short extension while they put a budget deal together like they did in 2011, then you're going to see real interest rate volatility in the market.
This system runs off of perpetual debt. We have to borrow from the future to sustain the quality of life today. It's adding up. The last time debt to GDP was this high was during World War II, followed by a restructuring event called Bretton Woods. That changed the system entirely. There's no way to know what straw will break the camel's back. However, we can clearly see a trend.
Well, we're definitely excited about DeFi at Coinbase, and we want to make sure we help build the future of this technology here in America. Actually, a lot of traditional financial services firms are integrating this technology. I mean, everybody from JP Morgan, Visa and MasterCard, Franklin Templeton, they have projects and teams internally working on how to integrate crypto into their services. And I think the reason for that is that 80% of Americans are not happy with the current financial system as it is today. They think it's too slow, the fees are too high, it doesn't serve everybody everybody equally. And a lot of the technology was built 40 years ago. The laws were 100 years ago. And so people are really excited about how crypto as a technology can help improve and update the financial system. And that's why we're here at Coinbase. We want to make sure that we enable that as well.
The old order is crumbling and a new one is emerging. The role of technology is pivotal in this process. Blockchain technology is set up to play a major role in the transformation of money.
Correlations are astounding. And so when you do that, when you dilute the currency supply and spend that new currency into one area, one sector, that area becomes warped, but it's robbing from the other area as it does it. This is what kept all of the groceries and gasoline and stuff down for so many years. They were having trouble creating that inflation because the mechanics of the way they create inflation is to inflate the stock markets and the bond market. And that's it. And that's what they're stuck with. It's the only thing. They can't go out and pump up the price of groceries and gasoline by buying groceries and gasoline. But why are we not questioning the morality of legally authorizing an entity to counterfeit currency and just imagine currency into existence and then buy things with it, especially things attached to our future work hours? We have to work to pay off that mortgage loan that's in the mortgage-backed security that the Fed bought. We have to work to pay the principal and the interest due on the treasury bonds through our taxes in the future. And so the currency comes into existence by sort of enslaving us. We are enslaved in the future, our children. This all has to be paid back through future taxation.
Blackstone has defaulted on Nordic commercial mortgage-backed securities. This illusion is breaking, rates are rising, and it's causing the system to break down. This fiat system relies on more borrowing, and while inflation is high, the Fed has to raise rates. This squeezes everyone's debt. There is less money than there is debt. This means that there must be failures. It's impossible to pay off debt that has been issued. There simply isn't enough money. A loan is bundled up, repackaged, repurposed, sold, and levered. When there's a trend of bankruptcies or defaults, that means that the underlying collateral has gone to zero. The whole house of cards that was built off of the loan becomes worthless. It has a domino effect. That's what happened with mortgage-backed securities in 2008. It's currently happening in the used auto market. We're just at the beginning, and at one point it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger until the central banks come in and bail everyone out. This is the system. It's breaking down, and sooner or later the currency breaks. And they'll have to replace the system entirely. It hasn't happened yet, but historically it always happens.
The Fed's really caught between a rock and a hard place. They've got to get inflation down, and they're using if you're a tool, if you got a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and their best tool right now is higher interest rates. The problem for the largest borrower in the world, that is the United States government, that has, the average interest cost on the U.S. government debt is 2% on that $31 trillion. The weighted average maturity of the federal debt is 5 years. So that entire debt is being repriced in a much higher interest rate environment, right? The 10-year is now almost at 4%, the 2 at almost 5%. So that average interest rate is going up for the federal government and has been going up. In 2021, the total interest bill for the federal government, net interest bill, was $350 billion. Last year, it was $475 billion. And this year, it'll get to 600 or north of 600 billion. And when you think about it, that $250 billion increase, that's bigger than the size of the Army's budget. Mm-hmm. So the Congress has now got a real problem in front of it, which is interest costs are squeezing out the potential funding of other important programs.
Just the interest on $31 trillion that was borrowed, there's not enough tax revenue to pay for that. The interest payments is larger than the U.S. Army. Rates need to go back to zero or negative interest rates because the government can't afford to pay the debt. They'll raise the debt ceiling in order to pay for the short term, but eventually it doesn't work. It's too much. And we're headed down that path. There are no solutions for the long term, it's all reactionary. Whatever the path of least resistance. When it does break, what happens? Life keeps going on. Either they orchestrate something for the problem, or it's solved through the markets, which means they're no longer in control. Now what I'm talking about is a reset. They eliminate the debt completely. They default on it. Make a new currency, a new system, and erase the old. This is where digital currencies could play a role. What better way to transition to a new system? The old money is exchanged for new money within a new system.
It really makes the point. If you think about, contrast the WeChat in China with a WeChat with privacy for all those aspects of your interaction, it's obvious that the one is antithetical to democracy or whatever, worse, and the way through, because that's what people want, is messaging integrated with payments and these other, Minioff says they need them. That's the way that you could deliver real privacy to the general public, and that's what's needed to restore democracy, the robustness of democracy and confidence in democracy.
As money erodes, society is going to feel the pressure. CBDCs and other technologies are coming. To restore the faith in democracies, it's essential that there is a layer of privacy for users. Privacy can restore trust and faith in society. The surveillance state that's coming from China is not science fiction. It's a possibility. It's important for the US and other Western societies to take the issue of privacy seriously, or watch everything crumble.
That are not based here.
Yeah. Well, look, I think that would be a terrible mistake for the United States. Look at what's happening with AI, right? That's an important technology trend where it's becoming a matter of national security, right? That some of these things are built in the US. Or we saw it in the past with 5G or with semiconductors. And so if we have this really powerful technology, cryptocurrency, that has the potential to update the financial system and improve it in so many ways, how can we sit on the sidelines in America and say, oh, okay, well, we're going to let the EU pass comprehensive legislation, and so it'll be built there, and we're going to let the UAE and London and Singapore and Hong Kong. This is America. We need to be a technology hub. We need to be a financial hub, and the future of this industry needs to be built right here in America.
The U.S. has had advantages of the old system, and that's why they're stalling. By stalling, technology is going elsewhere and puts us at a disadvantage. When this all comes crumbling down, there's a chance the U.S. could play a major role in the next system. But in order to do that, we need to have the talent onshore.
Way. China has been working on a pilot since 2014, working on its central bank digital currency, has already sort of had millions of transactions, millions of wallets, and has an array of pilots that are in the hands of people testing out smart contracts and programmability of money. So they actually have data that they're iterating on, and they're helping other countries with standards and collaborating on CBDC to CBDC transactions. So I'd say we're behind, although it doesn't mean that it's a race where we have to do exactly what China's doing, but the conversation globally is happening, and China is well positioned to influence that conversation.
How concerning is that from a security perspective, given your background on that and on counterterrorism and some of these other issues? You have special insight into this.
Yes, and I think the backdrop to this is that there's really a geopolitical context to all of this, and we have to make sure that we're not losing the forest for the trees. The geopolitical backdrop is that around the world there is now, I don't know if it's a race, but there's certainly a march towards finding alternative ways for new digital financial infrastructure, basically how to do cross-border transactions in a way where you're not relying the same way on traditional banking infrastructure. That's happening, whether we want to like it or not. And it's not just China. Of course, China has its project, but other countries in the EU, the UK, Japan, other parts of East Asia are all trying to figure out a way to innovate with payments. Now, the geopolitical implication there is if there is an alternative financial infrastructure, if there are new rails and the U.S. doesn't have the same influence on that, it is not sort of at the table when new standards are being laid, then that impacts U.S. economic statecraft. Sanctions, the ability to sanctions,
Financial markets are built around U.S. values. As the technology leaves and goes elsewhere, the U.S. has less of a say. Other parts of the world are moving forward and embracing this technology because they have the most to gain. It can't be stopped. It's global. And like we've seen with other technologies, once it starts to pick up adoption, it has network effects and moves rapidly. Crypto hitting a $2 trillion market cap was a signal that we're in the beginning phases, that it's not going away.
We're in dialogue with, not 10, not 20, but a bunch more, central banks around the world on these discussions. We've announced projects with Bhutan, with Palau, and others to come. And I think that just shows you that this really resonates. Now, one size does not fit all.
This is a matter of national security. Our power relies on the fact that everyone has to use our banking rails, that everyone has to use dollars. Ripple is unlike any other crypto company in the cryptosphere. They've had IMF and former Fed officials like Jess Chang, Michael Barr, former Treasury like Rosie Rios and Craig Phillips, foreign relation experts Anu Manuel, 300 plus large banking partners. Ripple is positioned as one of the largest leaders. 20 plus central banks are talking to Ripple to build on instances of the XRP ledger. If the US has a say in the next gen financial system, it will be through US companies like Ripple and others.
Well, you're absolutely correct that this is not just about Ripple. It's about the entire industry, and it's about innovation in the United States. And we can't predict timing. We have done all we can on our side. We've made our best case. It is now with the judge, and we would hope and expect that in the first half of 2023, there would be some resolution. But again, timing-wise, is something that's completely beyond us. And it's actually a really important point and segue to kind of how do you deal with a company during this time. And I mentioned the focus on building. Our employees get up every day, and while they do read these news articles and watch broadcasts like this, if they are certainly outside the U.S., they get up every day ready to build because they can build. When you wake up every day and you're worried about, whether or not the regulation is going to go against you, it does make it very difficult to build companies and to build teams, not just for Ripple, for the industry. And so, and that's been true, by the way, that was true in the gig economy and in Web 2.0, where it was a heavily regulatory environment, and I was a participant in that in my previous role. And so we've been through this before, but I only know one thing to do, which is to get our people waking up excited about innovation, excited about making a difference. And we're coming to you, and you and I are both talking in Asia. I mean, we're in the land of innovation here on fintech, and we're in the land of innovation on blockchain and the use of crypto. And so that is a great way to wake up, and not to wake up and think first about regulation coming down on you.
If Ripple gets clarity for XRP, they could stall the rest of crypto and funnel development through Ripple for XRP, setting a standard. The other coins stay in limbo while XRP is first and gets regulated.
According to the Atlantic Council's tracker, 114 countries representing over 95% of global GDP are exploring CBDC. 11 countries have fully launched, while central banks in other major jurisdictions are researching and experimenting, with some at a fairly advanced stage. For example, the Bank of England and HM Treasury, HMT, recently published a consultation paper assessing the case for a retail CBDC and outlining a proposed technological model. They are now entering the design phase of their work, estimated to take 2 to 3 years, after which the Bank of England and UK government will decide on whether to build a digital pound. In addition, as you know, there are multiple cross-border CBDC pilots, which involve central banks, international organizations such as the BIS, and private financial institutions.
95% of central banks are diving into this technology. The Bank of England tested Ripple Tech and is a paying RippleNet customer. May we think of freedom not as a right to do as we please, but as the opportunity to do what is right. Thanks everyone, I hope you enjoyed the show. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. If you enjoy content like this, please consider joining my Patreon or website.